Humans have evolved to be very social creatures. We used to rely on each other to keep us safe, to help us find food, and to take care of one another. Even though time has passed, an evolutionary trait that tells us to stay in groups isn't much of a necessity anymore, the human brain still relies on social connections. Researchers across the globe have found that there are detrimental effects to perceived social isolation that affect the brain in a way that isn't purely mental. Throughout countless studies, the results are the same. Loneliness can cause early onset dementia, strokes, heart attacks, perceived stress, and increased risk of mortality, along with a constantly expanding list of neurological effects. Loneliness is an epidemic, stated by the U.S. Surgeon General himself, and is having catastrophic repercussions. An estimated 100 deaths an hour, or 871,000 deaths a year, is connected directly to loneliness. Social isolation has a whole host of causes. Loss, the death of a friend or family member, can make a person feel alone and isolated from everyone, even if they aren't trying to feel lonely. A study found that a shocking 88% of people feel alone in their grief after loss, even if they have people trying to help them. This is especially true with sudden bereavement, where researchers found that people who report feeling lonely are more likely to make suicide attempts after loss. Another cause of perceived social isolation is discrimination and socioeconomic causes. People who are isolated based on race, gender, ethnicity, and sexual orientation, who are shunned or isolated from the community, tend to experience an objective lack of social interactions and support, causing the person to feel isolated and disliked. If someone feels like they do not belong in a group, they isolate themselves, causing loneliness. Lastly, social isolation can be caused by something as highly perceived as retirement. People tend to idolize retirement, the time in a person's life when they can finally take a break from the world and just enjoy their last years. However, countless scientists and researchers have found that 43% of adults in America over the age of 60 feel lonely, and every 1 in 2 adults over 50. After someone retires, their entire life changes. They experience the loss of daily structure. They no longer interact with coworkers and friends they used to interact with every day, and they generally don't do much, especially if their spouses pass away. A retired adult can be left feeling lonely, purposeless, and isolated from the rest of the world. There's a long list of causes for social isolation, which can make it all the harder to eliminate. Not just elderly and retired people are affected by the loneliness epidemic. Young adults, classified as those under 30, experience high rates of loneliness at about 31%. Gen Z, ages 7 to 22, are especially vulnerable to perceived social isolation due to social media and adolescents' peer dynamics, leading to declining mental health. Middle-aged adults, 55 to 60 years old, have been found to experience very alarming amounts of loneliness, with over 40% reporting perceived social isolation. As they get older and retire, their social circles tend to sink, with people no longer wanting to go out with their friends, or maybe even some passing away. Plus, the added stress of finances, with rising prices and pay not rising to match it. Some people are finding their retirement funds to not be enough. Enormous financial can start to feel like you are drowning, which can lead to feeling isolated and like no one wants to help you. Older adults are also an at-risk group, with 24% of adults over the age of 65 feeling socially isolated and alone. This puts this demographic at a higher risk of early onset dementia, heart disease, and even mortality. It isn't just age groups that are affected by social isolation either. Certain demographics are more vulnerable than others. Lower income individuals, less educated adults, and men tend to be at a higher risk of loneliness. Plus, people with disabilities and chronic illnesses are largely affected by the social isolation because of their barriers in social engagement and connection. Lastly, those in high demanding jobs are also at risk. People who spend their lives working and barely resting or interacting outside of their job can lose their sense of identity besides working, and can feel isolated even from themselves. Loneliness has been a growing concern since before the COVID-19 pandemic. Although that was when it grew large enough for the world to notice, from the 2000s to 2019, studies began showing that there were rising shifts in social habits, along with the rise of technology. Then, as soon as the pandemic hit, there was a stay-at-home order and people stopped interacting with anyone outside of their families. Social distancing caused an even stronger feeling of isolation, affecting all age groups and demographics, even those not usually affected by social isolation like younger children. After the pandemic, some aspects of social connection were retained, but studies show that many people still remain lonelier than when they were before the pandemic. There has been a significant rise in isolation persisting even into 2025, which causes a large amount of risks.
Isolation and loneliness, which is seemingly not that big of a deal, is in fact a big deal. Loneliness has been proven to be extremely bad for anyone's physical health, equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. This puts everyone at an increased risk of dementia, heart attack, stroke, chronic inflammation, and even mental disorders such as depression and anxiety. Loneliness isn't just bad for your body, it's also bad for your brain. Studies point directly to changes in your brain structure as an effect of loneliness, such as cognitive decline. Cognitive decline causes memory issues, poor focus, trouble processing, and even brain fog. This can eventually lead to dementia. Loneliness can cause literal structural changes within your neural pathways in your brain, such as gray matter decreasing, which impairs cognitive functions like processing memories, attention span, and decision making. Yes, loneliness can even cause you to make poor decisions. The effects of social isolation are so extreme, they're tied to emotional dysregulation such as increased fear and threat response. Overactivated leads to ruminations, negative thoughts, and even withdrawal. It can weaken the links between your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala, which is where your fear is made, which causes emotional outbursts and a feeling of a loss of control. It reduces dopamine and oxytocin, hinders motivation, and reduces trust. Cortisol and stress levels rise, which severely impacts your overall brain functioning. Long-term, loneliness and perceived social isolation can put you at a higher risk for depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, low self-esteem, and even dementia and Alzheimer's. Loneliness can have a huge effect on your life and even your brain health.
There are ways to break free from loneliness. Social isolation and its effects are not an ending. There are ways to improve quality of life and even get your brain health back to where it once was. Schedule regular contact. Make time for phone calls, video chats, texting your friends and family. Schedule outings with your friends and have real meaningful conversations. Reduce distractions when talking to people to ensure that you really connect and feel that connection, rather than pulling yourself away and isolating yourself from everyone. Build new connections. Find clubs or groups with people that have the same interests with you to help connect with others. Meet your neighbors. Take a class. Just build those new connections. Pursue your hobbies, stay active, and consider a pet. There are so many ways to help improve your quality of life and to keep you away from being socially isolated. To sum it all up, loneliness and perceived social isolation are extremely detrimental to you and others' health. It has been linked to declining mental and physical health, along with the literal neural pathways of your brain weakening. Anyone, anywhere can be afflicted by the effects of loneliness. If you see someone near you struggling or alone, reach out. All it takes is one friend. Be that friend.